Today is about fruit trees. So this information, I'm going to go over specifically the fruit trees. I picked my favorite varieties. I've grown a lot of fruit trees all over the county. This is really, really good fruit country. There is a trend for more edibles. I think that's economic kind of stuff going on. So the edible thing is off the charts. And the number one department that has gone up the most, fruit trees. So edible, anything to do with not just trees, but grapes, berries, brambles, currants, gooseberries, all those things. Strawberries. I could have paid my mortgage at least 1 month with nothing but strawberries. So it's just this edible plant thing is huge. And so folks are trying to landscape with edible plants. And it's very doable. We have a lot of fruit at our house, and I don't necessarily eat it, all of it. Some of it I planted just for the birds, because it's pretty, and we attract, I love birds and butterflies. I just bring those things in. And I do it with fruits. And so I'll have some fruits for us, and then I'll plant the next one. I actually plant for the birds. It's kind of a weird thing, but it works. We'll go over which fruit trees work here and which ones don't. Specifically, let's get out of the way. This is for all of SoCal, Phoenix, Palm Springs, Tucson folks. No, we do not grow citrus. Okay, we don't do that. No, okay, here, let's get it out. We don't grow avocado. Don't ask me that again. We don't grow those, but I'll show you the ones we do grow really, really well. And out of all the apples, the pears, the cherries, and the peaches, the nectarines, I'm going to show you the ones that fruit the best, the most production, the ones that are going to fruit here. We get tricked by the deserts. You'll buy some fruit tree out of Costco. Can I say them online? Sorry, folks. But the box stores, out of a box store, and their buyers buying, I see avocados sold right here at our local box stores. I see citrus sold right here. And it will do fabulous until mid-December, January. And then it will die to the plant. They aren't going to come over the winter for you. So you got to watch your varieties. You could, that's cheating. That's what a gardener would do. So she said, for you folks online, could I pot it up in a pot and then bring it indoors in my greenhouse? Well, yeah, you can do anything you want with a greenhouse.
Is it going to do any good though?
It probably would.
Grow well in a large.
Yeah, what happens is the root freezes and they die.
Oh.
So they'll go down to mid-20s, citrus and blood-good orange or Meyer lemon. But once they go below 20, the root freezes, it's over. So it's not going to go. Whereas these trees we're going to show you today, they'll go down to minus 20, 30, 40 degrees. They'll go way sub-zero. And then come back and go, whoa, let's bloom. And in fact, they need the cold to bloom. They need the cold. It's a trigger. It's so many chill hours before they actually set blossoms. We'll cover some of that. So, yeah. Now, you are going to get derailed by all these questions. Go right ahead.
When you talk about these varieties of planting, is it just for Prescott area or is it for Prescott Valley?
Okay, good. Is this for Prescott Valley, or where? We are all the same. Prescott Valley is not better than Prescott. Chino is not more open than Prescott Valley. Paulden is the same as Cordes Junction, Spring Valley, Dewey, Humboldt. It even works to Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Sedona. We are all the same. We're just one growing zone different. So as you go up the 69 corridor, maybe you're zone 8. This is a zone 7. If you're at the base if you're at Paulden, the base of that hill, all that cold air spills out into that valley. That's a zone 6. Kind of the Verde River could be, you would think it'd be warmer. It's 4,000 foot. But it actually, all that cold air just settles right in on them and it creates a zone 7, 8. So we're all the same, plus or minus about 5 degrees. So all these varieties are going to grow anywhere from about the 4,000 foot level to probably 60, 65, 6,500, somewhere in there level. Once you get to Williams, Flagstaff, it narrows the same choices, but it's going to narrow down which varieties you can go with. We've got more options. Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, with that, I'm going to talk to my fabulous assistant, and you folks online, I'm going to take this group and go walking around. Now, if you get disconnected because the Wi-Fi is out of turn for you, you should have been here. Sorry. We're going to do a walking tour and just kind of walk and show you which ones work best, that kind of stuff. That's real. It's maybe 12, 15 of us. I think we can do this. As we travel around, just give each other some space, and I'll try to speak louder so that you can hear it. Maybe the PA will pick up enough, but eventually I might lose the signal. We'll just see how it goes. I've never done this before, so we'll just try it. Are we all agreed? Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's go this. So the varieties that grow here are apricots, nectarines, plums, peaches, cherries, pears, apples, and a couple different nuts. Walnuts and almonds. They all grow here. Out of all the varieties, see all the apples, not every variety, all the apples will grow here. Not all of them will set fruit here. Makes sense. So some of them need more chilling hours. So chilling hours it needs to be cold for a certain length of time, and after so many hours it will bloom. It's a trigger. Plants are programmed, trees are programmed for that. If you get a desert variety after 300 hours of cold, that's about the end of January, it will start to bloom. Well, we have 2 more months of frost. Our last frost date's Mother's Day. May 8th is exactly the date for here. May 10 in Prescott Valley, May 10 in Chino Valley. But basically the first weekend in May is our locals use for frost dates. If it starts to bloom too early, you're exposed to potential frost too long. And it won't kill the tree, but what will happen is it will take the fruit or the blossom. So what you want to look for trees, varieties that have the highest chill hours possible. So you want a minimum 600 hours. That says minimum. Some of your desert varieties are 200, 300, 400 hours. So that you can just tell. I can tell customers come in and go, I've had this pear tree for 3 years, it's never produced fruit. Well, there's only 1 of 2 reasons. You got the wrong variety, or you don't have the pollinator for it. So some trees take buddies. We'll go over that before we're all done. It's the one that out of all of the apricots, all apricots take less chill hours before they bloom. So they're always the very first tree to bloom, fruit tree to bloom in the mountains of Arizona. They're going to bloom a month before apples or pears. They just do that. So we're taking apricots, and of all the varieties, there's only 2 that need a lot of chill hours. So typically 700 to 800 hours. There's going to be your Chinese or Mormon apricot, and then Harcot. Those are the only 2 varieties we sell here, or I would recommend to my friends to plant if you ever want an apricot. Apricots are one of those feast or famine things. You either have so many, you better have canning supplies ready, you better power up that dryer to make leathers or something, because you're going to be overwhelmed, and then have friends, or you'll have none. This year it seemed to be a none year. Lots of peaches, lots of cherries, apricots a little softer, tons of apples and pears this year. The 2 that seemed to get zipped by that last cold front that we had were the nectarines and the apricots. So that's this year. Next year it'll be so many nectarines you don't know what to do with all. It'll be one of those. So these are the varieties. So I'm going from first to bloom in spring, which means you're most exposed or least likely to get fruit, okay? And I'm going to end with apples and pears, which are the last to produce. So I'm going to give you the list of, if I were to plant, I would plant them in the opposite direction of giving them to you. Let's start with apples and pears, because they're the most likely to produce fruit. They just are so consistent up here. This is like apple and pear country. But everyone wants an apricot. Everyone wants a peach. Cherries, I've sold a lot of cherry trees this year. But they bloom a little bit earlier, so you're more exposed. It's important that you do your homework, okay? And that'll be in this book. If you give me your email, I'll give you that. You'll have the chart. Tell you which ones and which ones help each other. Okay, apricots are self-fruitful. It only takes 1. You don't need a cross-pollinator. So once it's done, you can plant 1 of each, or just 1, just a Harcot. That's it. And it will produce apricots by itself. Okay? Plums are the next. Plums do very, very well here if you get the right varieties. The most famous of all are Santa Rosa plums. It's a purple plum with a light flesh in it. It's got kind of a bitter skin, but really sweet, that sweet and sour tart thing. It's most popular. I don't think it's the best plum myself. I like Toco, Beauty. There's several other varieties, but we're trying to curate the plums for our clients so you're more likely to get fruit. So we've got the varieties with the most chill hours again. Plums, most varieties take 2. You need 2 to cross-pollinate, except for Santa Rosa. It's the only one that will pollinate by itself, and it would even do better if you had 2, a different variety. When I say pollination, it can't be a Gravenstein and a Gravenstein apple will pollinate each other. It needs to be a different variety. You need a Fuji and a Gravenstein, or a Gala and a. You need 2 varieties, and now all of a sudden they pollinate. That'll be the secret. So that's confusing to some folks. How far apart do they need to be? Within line of sight. So bees will travel, but I wouldn't put a barn or a house or a shed in between the between the 2 trees. But if they're in the same yard 100 feet away, no problem. Bees are pretty stupid. It's got to be right in front of their face, or they can't seem to put the dots together. So just if you put them in close by, what that does for you though is, if a neighbor 2 doors down, if they've got a cherry tree and it's out there in the front yards, their tree will pollinate your tree, as long as you know what variety it is, and you can get the right match for that. Does that make sense? But if their tree is producing fruit, like cherries, being whatever, probably you could plant almost any kind of cherry tree you want, because they've already figured there's already something pollinating those, and all of a sudden the bees are going to come to your place and pollinate yours too. So apples, pears, all those are all the same. So that'll help you a lot. Opens up the door quite a bit. Next would be nectarine. Oh, yeah, I did pollination. Plums need pollinators. On the end of the tree racks, as you walk through, you'll see big posters, and that is the pollination chart. We put it there mainly for our staff, because that's a lot of trees. Remember which one pollinates which. We go, well, let's just look. Oh, look. Yeah, lapins are self-pollinating. Oh, good, but you'll see which plums pollinate the other plums. It's there to help you, but it helps us too. Secondly, fruit trees need to be at least 5 to 7 years old before they're old enough to start fruiting. So they don't form, they just like people, they got to hit puberty before they actually can do something. Fruit trees are about 5 to 7 years old. We don't sell whips here, we don't sell the young trees. We figure our clients, people that shop here, I had a nickel for every time I heard, don't have forever to wait, I want it now, I want it instant, I want it bigger, I want it more. And so we try to, I wasn't saying that, but we're trying to bring in the varieties. All of our trees are of fruiting age, or minimum. In fact, you'll see fruit on the trees, even in the racks. For sure they'll be old enough next spring to produce for you in your own yard. So kind of those 2 things watch. Nectarines are self-fruitful. Only takes 1. So it says self, that means self-fruitful. One tree is needed. Peaches are also self-fruitful. This is pretty good peach country. I would say probably 3 out of 4 years, you'll get peaches. Every once in a while they'll bloom, and that last frost, the mountains, they get tricked into blooming early, and the frost comes and takes them, but usually we get really good peaches. Out of that, probably the most consistent is Reliance peach or Ranger peach, because they're the highest chill hours. They bloom the latest in the season. The most popular by far, anything to do with Alberta. Red Alberta, regular Alberta, early Alberta. The Alberta is the one you buy in the grocery store, great big juicy peach. All the peaches we carry here are cling-free. We're trying to get varieties that are just, if you're going to plant a fruit tree, why work so hard at getting the flesh off? Why shouldn't it just peel right off the seed? And so that's kind of my thing. I'm going, we don't want fruit trees unless they're cling-free. That's it. That's all of our trees, but they're self-fruitful. So we're trying to curate the varieties so you have more success, better flavor. Just we see which ones are consistently producing here, and the proof is in the fruit. you just see a neighborhood coming off with Alberta peach Rangers, you just know, oh, that's a good one. Sell those. Yes.
Can I ask you a question or should I wait?
Go for it.
I have a Reliance peach tree. Self-pollinating, as you know, 900 chill hours.
Yep.
This year, about 2 months ago, during all the wind, and the tree is as healthy as a judge.
Yep.
Green leaves,
Yeah.
good-looking bark, everything. I lost all of my peaches. They were on the ground. They're about that size.
Huh.
Any idea what would have caused that?
So what happened to him? He had a Reliance peach.
Yes.
Reliance peach, good variety. It was loaded with peaches, and all the peaches dropped. Why? I don't know. A couple of things happened this year. One, I thought you were going with the leaves were curling, had holes in them, and just kind of deforming. That's thrip. Thrip is a little tiny bug, also called no-see-em. Sometimes they'll bite your skin, leave a little welt. They were as bad as I've ever seen this year. Because remember, spring is hard to think this when it's 85 degrees out and sunny right now. Back a month and a half ago, it was the longest, chilliest spring I'd seen in years. It was just a long, cold spring. And thrip love long, cold springs. That's what they live for. Thrip and aphids. They were as bad as they can. They could have nipped the buds. They were so bad they could have infected the tree and nipped the fruit. And the fruit just said, ouch, and shed their fruit. Could have been that, or it got hit by a frost because it was so long and cold. Just one night dipped too cold, and the fruit just got damaged, and the tree will self-eject the fruit. One of those two things happened. I don't know which one.
Wind was not a factor.
I don't think, because wind, it's always been there. It's always had wind. It's always, why this year is it different? Wind is typically thrip. Thrip looks like wind damage because they suck the life out of the tree. So, but it's not usually wind. It's usually thrip.
Thank you.
There's something else that's going to go with it's on that, but it'll come to me. Okay, then let's go with, we were at apricots, nectarines, plums, peaches, then it would be cherries. Cherry, this is really good cherry country. I mean, like, so many cherries, you better have bushel baskets ready to go. And you better have scare tape all over the tree because the birds are going to be just as interested in those as you are. Bing, Black Tartarian, Stellas, cherries. Some varieties are produced by themselves. Usually cherries do better with a buddy. So you put a Stella out there which is self-fruitful, but then it will pollinate every other cherry. Lapins. Have you seen the price of lapin cherries in the grocery store? It's ridiculous. You could grow your own and have 3 bushel baskets yourself, and they're self-fruitful, one tree, and you're good. So you can have this, you can have it yourself. Okay? The most popular, the best producing, would be apples and pears. Pears, there's a few less choices as far as chill hours go. Bartlett is the most popular. I don't think it's the best pear myself. Just the shelf life on it is kind of too short. It's delicious. It melts in your mouth. Tastes and feel like a pear. Makes the best leathers ever. But I think Comise, D'Anjou, there's so many others that have a longer shelf life, so you don't have to feel pressured to like use like 100 pounds of pears now. Some of them you can keep on the tree a little longer, and they taste just as good. So these are all your pear trees. Apples, probably #1 seller. And apples are at $2-3 a pound in the grocery store, and probably they're not organic, and probably they were picked last fall. Probably they were wrapped in wax and brought in. They're finally unboxed after. Fruits are so much better right off the tree. They just taste better. But your apples, there's so many varieties, it does get confusing because this is apple country. This is one you really want to watch, the desert varieties. Stay away from the desert rose and all these pink ladies, all these varieties that do really well at hotter areas, but then they get frosted out up here. So watch your chill hours and watch your cross-pollination. Apples do better than pears. They need 2 different varieties. Every once in a while you'll find a cocktail tree. That's one we get really fancy, we'll start to graft. We'll take a branch off of one and we'll graft it and stick it into another trunk. We do sell those in early spring. I don't think I have any of them right now because we just sold out. That's a good way to go with an apple tree with 5 different varieties. We had apples, cherries, pears, and I think a peach cocktail tree. Now they don't put apples, pears, cherries on the same tree. They got to be the same genus, but you can put any kind of apple you want on a main apple trunk. You put any kind of peach you want on a peach trunk. But that's a good way to have one tree with multiple fruits, if that's of interest. So that's when you do your research, you'll see cocktail trees. That's what it really, really is. Okay?
Can you mix a conifer like a pine with an apple and get a pineapple?
Did you hear that? Can you mix a pine tree with like fruit for the what was it again? Apple tree and have a pineapple tree?
No.
Down and back. Just no, you can't do that. Okay, so where else? Let's go over here and I'll show you how to plant a tree. Does it seem right? Any questions on the varieties of trees? Yeah.
Well, I just have a question about fertilizer.
We'll cover fertilizer in a second.
Apples, the 2 best producing up here.
Best producing, there's a lot that produce. Best tasting. This is personal opinion. On my personals, I love Honeycrisp. I love Gravenstein, which is kind of like a Honeycrisp. It's just firm. It lasts a long time on the tree. So what happens about shelf life. You want it to hang there for a little bit so you don't have to harvest everything all at once. The absolute best, bar none, applesauce, Golden Delicious. It just makes the best sauces. Everyone likes the green Granny Smith. I don't care for that one. But I love pies, but I'm like, it's too tart, too crisp, too light. The shelf life is forever on it, but there's not as many uses for it. So I don't care for it. It produces really well up here. It's beautiful, but it's just not my favorite. So Fuji is another number 1 seller. So I'm not even sure what I have over there. Most consistent, just to go back to here, which one produces the most? Probably Red Delicious. Just produces the sheer most apples. I don't care for it as much. A little bit pithy as it gets older. It's great right off the tree, but not as, in my opinion, not as good. Let's go in the shade. Yeah.
What about the shelf life of Rayburn?
Great. That'd be great. Rayburns would be wonderful. Should be good. Yeah. Beautiful fruit. Yeah, right here.
Rome apples.
Rome would do fine. That's good.
There's a one in our neighborhood that must be 100 years old.
Yeah. It's kind of an old-fashioned apple tree. Yeah.
I haven't seen one in the stores, I bet, in 6 or 7 years.
It's fallen out of
They're
favor.
the only decent bacon apple, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you have any
And you
of those
can eat it.
trees?
I think I sell Romes over here.
Oh.
Great plum tree. And this is probably about 5 to 6 years old from cutting. Another thing you'll notice too, all of our trees, they've got a graft. You'll see this knot right here. That concerns some people. A preferred tree is grafted. And here's the reason why. We don't want to start them by seed because then you get genetics coming up. So what we'll do is we'll search the fields. We'll look for the perfect Toco plum or Ranger peach or Bing cherry. It's just got the perfect shape. The fruits are just so delicious. They're sweeter, they're better color. We're looking for preferred genetics. And then agriculture has perfected grafting stuff. So we take a cutting off of that mother plant and then we graft it onto a hardier rootstock. And all of a sudden we get an exact copy of that tree that you're growing in your backyard.
What do you mean
So the
by
preferred,
prettier roots?
so certain roots of the plant, right? So we're picking a root that is adapted to clay soil. We're getting really specific here. So Waters Garden Center is known as a place where our trees grow. They just live. You pay a little bit more, but they just live. This is why. Now, so I'm telling you an inside secret. We're trying to get the right root that grows in clay soils, because this is rough soil. This is not, you can't just have any, there's some roots that are better at clay soils. And we're grafting that preferred tree onto that better rootstock. And so if you see a knot right here, that's a good thing. Some folks get confused going, I don't want that. I'm going, yes, you do. You do want that. It's a better tree. And then also, when you see this topsoil, don't bury this. I see too many mistakes where people bury it, they plant it a little bit deeper. Or they'll even cover up this graft. And that's certain death. Within 18, 24 months, the tree's dead. It's just it'll crown rot or root rot or has some rotting factors. You want this soil to remain exposed and be able to breathe as you plant this. So with that, let's show you how to do this. And this is, no matter what kind of tree you have, this is how you plant it. Actually, this is how you plant everything. But it's really important with fruiting plants. The roots on fruiting plants don't go down at all. There's no taproot. They all go sideways, especially if you put them on a drip system. So they're going to be dependent. You're going to train that tree to go after the water and food that you give it. So the roots are going to be probably within just the first foot of soil. They don't go down. If it does put a taproot, it goes down about 12, 18 inches, turns, and runs this way. And so if you know that's how the tree's going to grow in our mountain soils, dig a hole that helps it do that. And so we're only digging a hole as deep as the bucket. That's it. You do not have to go down there. But you want to go wide. So add a bucket on each side and go kind of saucer shape. And again, you're going to have a handout on this. If you give me your address, this will be in your inbox by the end of the day. And kind of saucer shaped. Okay, now you're going to have all this dirt out to the side out here. You want to mend some mulch with that right here. This is organic mulch. We make this locally sourced. It's from here. Something we make. It's screened down real tight. It's compost. It's made to add to our native soil. What happens if you have really heavy clay, you dig up this clay, you loosen it up, you put that back around there. As soon as you water it, it goes right back to its solid state. And so you want to keep it a little fluffy so the roots can get through that. So about 25% mulch to your native soil. It's got to get used to your native soil. It's got to transition sometime. We just want to help it. Also, the mulches, they tend to add or attract worms, microphylla, anyway, the beneficial stuff in the soil. This is going to activate all that. Okay. So I'm going to blend that up, about 25%. Some of you are going to dig a rock out of there. You got this huge boulder that you just dug out. If you need to, you can cheat it up to about 50-50. You need some more filler. Over that, this stuff stays too wet, too soggy, it's too much. So you want some of that native soil, but 25 to 50%, about one shovel for every 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 shovels of native soil. Okay? Blend that together. Another mistake I found with rookies is they'll layer that. They'll go, here's some native soil, then I'll layer some mulch, then I'll throw some native soil. You want to blend it. Roots do not like change. They do not like to go through different soil bands. They do not like to see different kinds of patterns. They want consistency. Give it that, the roots will start growing out. So that's how you backfill that. Before I plant my tree, I always, every time I plant, I always add some Aqua Boost at the bottom of the planting hole. This is soil polymers. They swell up, they hold moisture. They swell up and take like 200 times their weight in water. Well, we've infused ours with mycorrhizal fungi, which are the living organisms that help plants root. So you've got something that holds moisture around the root ball, and then it also encourages, it pollinates your soil. Most of you have dead soil. You literally, there's nothing alive in your soil. Well, this helps to invigorate at least that planting hole around the roots of that tree. So every time I plant a tomato, a rose, a fruit tree, trees especially, a pine tree, I'll sprinkle a couple tablespoons at the bottom of the hole, and then I'll backfill around that, kind of blend it in, and I'll backfill my mulch soil around that. Does that make sense? So these just look like, it looks like, I don't know what it looks like. Kind of like reconstituted Wheaties or something. But anyway, it does help plants root. So our planting crews, every time we plant, we add some of that when we come out. So yes.
Is that AKA gypsum?
No, it's not gypsum. I don't encourage people to use gypsum. If you read the bag on gypsum, gypsum is calcium sulfate. If you read the bag, it says melts rock, makes plants grow anywhere. That is a lie. All that gypsum does Our water is so hard here. This is kind of way farther than I wanted to go.
Sorry.
But the science of it is that ring that builds up in your toilet or your bathtub or that from the hard water, that also clogs up the pores of your soil. All gypsum does is it helps flush the pores out. If you've got rock there are no pores. It's solid rock. There's nothing to flush out. It's not going to liquefy rock. So, but it does help with heavy clay sometimes. I think if you add mulch, just your AquaBoost. These are crystals that swell and shrink. Swell and shrink as water comes. If you change the texture of the soil, you're not going to need gypsum. So it should be able to
But
grow
that's
without
only
it.
used when you plant.
Only when you plant. Yeah. Great for containers. Oh, if you've got established plants, I'll add this to my house plants. I'll just take a big screwdriver or something, poke a hole, sprinkle them down the hole. You want to get this where the roots are. And probably for a big mature tree, not worth the energy. I've got other things that would do better. But for new plantings or containers or raised beds, this is like the solution. You travel a lot. This takes the pressure off. It cuts the water need in half for your plants. Okay, I'm going to backfill around that. Then I'm going to pack down. I want to have this soil at soil level or even a little bit above. This is especially important for you folks with heavy clay soil. This Granville, the 69 corridor all the way out, 89A. Tough, hard soil. I mean, it's crazy. Prescott Lakes, rough soil. I mean, the guys just made me buy them a bigger jackhammer because they couldn't get the digging bar and the little baby jackhammer wouldn't go through it as fast. Had to buy them a 70-pounder. This thing's, I whimper every time I pull it up and activate it. It's just heavy. It beats you up. It's the only way to get through that soil. So if you've got that, you do not want that water. You don't want to be sucked into what Phoenix tells us to do. You want to put it in a little divot so we can rain harvest. You do not want to do that up here. It's guaranteed damage to your plants. You want to be at level or a little bit above. A little bit above is really heavy clay. That's the only way. If we get a real heavy wet cycle, July, August, September is when we get most of our rain. That's when the damage is done. And then in March, when you get these heavy snows and just sit around and the soil just turns gooey, that's when you start to rot, have damage to the root system. If you put on a very slight mound and then put your emitter up that or your water basin around that, it guarantees no matter how much wet or rain cycle we have, at least that much of the roots can breathe. It's a game changer if you're out in those heavy clay soils. If you're closer to Granite Mountain, where it's mainly just granite, this rock shelf that happens about a foot to 18 inches below, the drainage is a little bit better. There you're adding a little bit more mulch so that it keeps the soil, the moisture up towards, so it doesn't just filter right down and takes the water pressure off. So there's some tricks. That's where gardening. Each one of your yards is a little different. You change it just a touch. There's no way I can get you exact. I can get you close so you're making less mistakes. That's my goal here. To make it where you're just making less mistakes. Backfill, pack it around. Then you're going to sprinkle some of your, for fruit trees specifically, I would sprinkle fruit and vegetable food. This is a organic food we made for here for our plants. This is good for grapes, berries, trees, whatever. Pomegranates, figs, whatever it is, whatever's fruiting. This is a great fertilizer. Organic, and it's pelletized. It's easy to use. So many organics are powders, and they're just, the formula is so crazy. Well, we got the craziness down, and we pelletize it so you can now spread it or sprinkle it around. I would take a handful of this and sprinkle it around the base, and every time water hits that, release a little bit of food over about a 3-month period of time. So that'll encourage more root growth. You just need roots. Yes?
Come
What?
forward
You
so
want to see
people
that?
can
Oh,
see
thank
it.
you. That's why we got good people. Is that too close? Too big?
Good. No, that's great.
Okay, there. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Yeah. Okay. I would fertilize it, and then I water it in at the very end with this root and grow. This is a compost tea, basically. It looks like dark syrup, basically. But it's a composted tea without all. It's like fish emulsion, only without all the stink. It's going to help shock, transplant shock. This thing is going to go into shock. This is the only home it's ever known right here. You're going to take it out, put it in your yard in this crummy soil. it's going to hate that. It's not going to like you. It's going to go into shock. And so this, I would give it this, I usually have a 2-gallon watering can before I even start, mix it up ahead of time. And I'll water it in here at the very end with this. I'll do this every 2 weeks until I see the soil, until I see the plant kind of go transition. I'm seeing new tip growth, like it's got lots of new growth. I go, oh, it's happening now. We're good, but I'll cut this off. It doesn't need any more. Every time you plant, you need some of this. Now let's go into the intricacies of June. Right now the soil is hot and dry. This is unique for now. When I dig my hole, I will water that hole before I even plant. If you don't do that, what will happen is you'll take your plant, you'll put it in, you'll water it, and the plant will get watered, but then the soil will want some of that moisture to wick all that water away. So your plant is left moist, it's left dry. So what I'll do when I sense the soil is real dry, I'll actually fill that hole up about halfway with water. Probably 3 or 4 gallons, depends on the size of the plant. I'll just fill it up. And then I'll set this down inside. The muckiness is kind of gooey, makes it kind of messy. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pre-hydrate the surrounding soil so I don't have the soil dry, pulling that away from me. It's a game changer in the summer. May, June, it's just hot and dry. When the monsoons come, pressure's off. So that little trick, and I'll plant that in, I'll backfill my soil, my mulch, native soil around that. Some of the water might kind of goo up a little bit, I'll kind of pack it down, and then it quickly dries up. So that little trick there, don't plant a dry plant in a dry hole, or you're doomed. The plant is gonna shock more on you. That goes not just for fruit trees, but anything you're planting. You can plant now. Plants will root really fast. The soil is very warm right now. So they just root, but you gotta watch that water factor. And that's how you plant. Any questions on how to plant? Again, you'll have this handout here shortly. It just goes over every bit of that. Another insider tip, and then I'll release you, let you go. How are we doing on time? I'm an hour, 40 minutes in. Good.
Do you mulch that after you plant?
I don't mulch afterwards. If I have extra mulch, like I have a third of a bag or something, I'll throw it on top. I do love, shredded cedar bark. The bark lasts a little longer, doesn't blow away, and cedar has a way of repelling insects. So I do like that. I have a lot of that in my yard. I probably put 10, 15 bags a year throughout the gardens, just kind of every spring. Yes?
My mom got some 5 trees planted by Water's Garden.
Yeah.
But every couple of days, the leaves are starting to get sad again, even though she's doing a deep watering for each one. And it seems like every time the water, even if it's slow, the water pools up because of the clay soil, and then it takes a long time to absorb. And so I'm not sure what the issue is, or if it was just a
It's
mistake.
probably water somehow.
Okay.
So plants right now, I'm getting mostly calls right now helping customers where the leaves are dropping. They're yellow and they're dropping, especially on the pitted fruits. I've seen this quite a bit. And that came down to a water issue. They were watering at spring levels. Now it got hot. The tree doesn't have enough it's not moist enough. So it's sacrificing some leaves to reduce its perspiration. And so it's just a natural rebalancing act. Another thing I notice right now, we have what we call is the June drop. It's not uncommon for fruit trees to drop some fruit in June because of that reason. It's hot, dry. The plant is deciding, I can't produce this much fruit. I've got too much. I can only take up so much through the root zone and feed these fruits. So it will naturally try to self-select and drop some fruit. It's a good thing. It's okay. Apples and pears, they don't drop very much. The more the pitted fruits do. If you got that, apples will produce clusters of fruits, probably 3, 4, 5, 6 fruits at a time. If you don't thin some of those, what will happen is you'll end up with these beautiful little tiny fruits with lots of seed. And you do want to thin off those. And usually I'll wait until the fruits form where I can see which one's the strongest and which one's the weakest. And I'll go through and I'll thumb prune while they're still about the size of a marble or so, a larger marble. About the size of a quarter kind of thing, where I can actually see, oh yeah, that's the one, oh that one's damaged, that one got wind damage, a bug took a bite out of that. And I'll just quickly thin those off, and I throw them on the ground. I'm just like Edward Scissorhands, just going through, trying to thin this fruit, and I'll go rake all that up. But to thin that fruit so all that energy goes into the one or two fruits remaining. Another thing to watch too are bugs. So I mentioned no-see-ums or thrip, T-H-R-I-P. They're a common problem as the plant is fruiting. If those thrip get too bad while it's fruiting, it can actually cause the flower not to pollinate. It'll shed its petals. It just won't set fruit if the thrip are too bad. And so it'll look like wind damage. It's not the wind, it's a bug. The only way I can tell, what I do if I'm out in someone's yard, I'll take my phone. This is the perfect screen. If you turn it off and just tap the foliage on top of this, you'll see little tiny specks of dust crawling around. That's thrip. Right now I'm seeing in my own gardens spider mites. I'm seeing spider webs on the plants, but no bug, no spiders. No, I think that's spider mites. If you tap that webbing area and you see dust crawling around, that's spider mites. They're notorious in the summer. They don't like spring. They like the heat. They like it right now. So we'll see how bad it'll get. It's not too bad right now. But if it gets too bad, I'll shoot a YouTube on it when I see it in my own yard. Hey, let me show you some thrip. Here you go. And try to get the word out to folks so they know what to look for. So they don't damage it. They'll kill spruce, pine. They'll do damage to perennials. So they're really after the evergreens. They're native. They're on the junipers. That's their native things to eat. But they migrate over to other things in your yard. They show up in summer. Easy to kill if you see them. Just spray them with a multi-purpose insect spray. We make our own spray that kills grasshoppers, spider mites. These are pests. Peach tree borer. There's a moth. Lays their eggs at the base of cherries and pitted fruits. She'll burrow into the trunk and you'll see this bubble of sap. If you see that, this is serious. You need to come see us right away. If you catch it early, put this on there, dab it on that little hole, and it will be gone. If you let it go, it will girdle the tree and kill it. So some things you just want to watch. You just want to react to it. But this is gardening, isn't it? A non-gardener would just let it go and take whatever nature gives it. Gardeners don't do that. We're trying to control and nurture and care for our plants. I mean, what's the latest hashtag? Plant parents, hashtag plants parents. The millennial, younger, even below the the younger generations, they actually have a name for it. But this is so cool. They're now plant parents. That's called gardener in our age. But same thing. We like to nurture and take care of our plants. So watch for bugs as you see it.
Is that the Nolo?
No, that's not Nolo bait. Nolo bait's down there because I wasn't going to cover grasshoppers. Grasshoppers don't necessarily get on fruit trees per much. They much prefer eggplants in your gardens. What else can I leave you with? Any last questions? Yeah.
How about once established, how often you fertilize and water?
So, water, you've got the water guide on my card. Grab one of those. About once a week. It's really important as plants fruit. You really want to be accurate with fruit. If you make a mistake while it's fruiting, it'll shed the fruit. The plant will not sacrifice its heart and soul, the main part of the trunk. It'll go, not enough water this year, I can't fruit, they'll let it go. Fertilizing is different. That one's a little bit easier. For fruit trees, I would definitely use the fruit tree food, fruit vegetable. I made this. This is 6447. I upped the calcium count on this because I know we have calcium issues here. I'm working with our plants for here. And so you're seeing tomatoes come off with a black spot on the end right now. This blossom end rot. That is calcium deficiency. That's just it. The size of fruit, the flavor of fruit, that's calcium. You can bring that flavor out by having more calcium. So when I make a fruit, brag about it, at least put the number on there so you can see it. And so this is made, it's pelletized, organic. So we're selling so many fruit trees, and fruit tree growers tend to want to be organic. I understand that. So why not make a fertilizer for that? I would fertilize this if you're thinking holidays. You want to go spring, summer, fall. The fall is the most important. But if you're thinking holidays, then fertilize on Easter, the 4th of July, and Halloween. Halloween's the most important feeding of the entire year, especially for fruiting plants, or anything that blooms in spring. The reason being it's going to use that fruit to form next spring's flower buds, or fruit buds, or leaf buds. Okay? So that's how often and how often you water. Make sense? Okay. But everything else, you use this. This is the original I made like 20 years ago. It's all-purpose food. It's mainly cottonseed meal. It does have iron and sulfur in it. You can't call it organic. As soon as you put a mineral in it, technically, you can't call it organic. So it's still all natural. But for the fruit tree folks, I knew I could twist. I like the recipes. Fertilizers are kind of like cooking recipes. Get it just right. It really makes a difference. Soils, same way. I love the recipes. Our soils are certain recipes I've perfected over 30 years. It makes a difference for the certain kind of plants. But this is for everything else. This evergreens respond to this like you've never seen. That's lawn food. But same thing. Easter, 4th of July, and Halloween. You do want to fertilize everything in the yard right now. The reason being the rains are coming. They're just east of the White Mountains right now. You can see the line of rain. It'll slowly migrate over to the White Mountains, Pine Top Lakeside, then it'll come over to Pace, and then it'll hit us. Probably it's about 2 weeks out right now. Look, I'm totally guessing. I'm not a meteorologist, but I do track the weather because I'm a farmer. I want to know when the rains come. So that's kind of, you want to get that fertilizer on just before the rains show up. You get a whole other set of growth in plants. In the back.
I had a peach tree, and we did have quite a few peaches. It's not a lot, it's just a little one, you know?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the peaches are almost all gone. And they're not on the ground. And I was like, are animals stealing them, even though they're not ripe at all?
So for you folks online, she's got a peach and all the fruit's disappearing. Where are they going? But they're not on the ground. They're just disappearing. My guess, total guess, without knowing more, you've got either pack rats or voles. One of those, probably pack rats. Maybe a ground squirrel. There's some sort of little vermin going up, and they're like decorations. They're not eating them. They're nesting. They're collecting. They're just going, oh, there's something to do. It's a hobby. They're climbing up the tree. They're picking the fruits off, going back, and they bury them around. So I've got similar problems with some of mine. So I've got rat traps out. I did have pack rats. I trapped 5 or 6 of them. Then it shut down. I think Mom had kicked them all out of the nest and find your own place to live. So I was catching them. Right now it's voles or the field mice. I've seen field mice all over the gardens. So I think they say they pulsate waves. I'll bet it's one of those two. I'm up at Eagle Ridge, so each neighborhood's going to be a little bit different. But if you've got chaparral, pine trees, manzanitas, cliff rose, those things, that's where all those things hang out. And that's our natural, that's us. That's where we're at right now. So my guess is, could be a ground squirrel, but you'd see a ground squirrel because they come out during the day. You don't see the rats and the mice because they come out at night. So, all right, yes?
And are there different types of pomegranate? Because there was one that was thriving in California. It was in a pot. We brought it here, and it was part sun, part shade, watering at the same schedule, and then it just died. And it was starting to produce. Oh! Yeah. But
So,
it already started before it came.
So for you folks online, so pomegranates, brought one from California. We don't know the name variety, but it was starting to fruit.
Yeah.
It was in a container. Did you get that right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just died. Why? I don't know why things just die. I don't know why people just drop on the streets. I don't know. But there's something there. We always, this time of year, we come down to water. Probably 80% of all issues are water. We have seen a lot of grubs in the planting crew, so we actually put grub killer on each of the trucks because you can't plant in a grub colony. They'll just eat all the roots off. So it could be something obscure that's really out there. That's a beetle will lay her eggs on the soil, then this little white worm comes and they feed off the roots. It could be obscure like that, mealybugs, that kind of stuff. More than likely, it's the soil. It got dry all of a sudden and hot, which pomegranates, they like that. But if the water didn't get right, in a container you're more defined, there's less margin for error. It could have been a water issue. I'd go with that, but I'm not quite sure
So
why it
pomegranates
does.
can grow well.
They can grow here. There's certain varieties, and we'll do that in a couple weeks. We're going over just berries, grapes, pomegranates, figs, the edible, not tree stuff, currants, I'm sure we'll cover, gooseberries. We'll cover that one. But there are certain varieties that grow here. These are things, figs don't grow like trees here. They get burned down to the ground. About every 2 or 3 years, they get burned back. So they're big shrubs, is what they turn out. In the Phoenix area where it doesn't freeze, they turn into huge trees. Not here. Pomegranate is the same way. They won't be as big as you remember them in SoCal. But they'll be a nice, good-sized shrub with that beautiful fruit on it. Prettiest flower ever. Beautiful reds. There's a couple varieties that do well here. We sell those varieties here. Blueberries grow here.
Well, I asked because I haven't seen anybody own a pomegranate, and then I was taking a walk in Granville, I live in that area. In the front of their yard, it is a huge pomegranate tree.
Nice.
Huge. I don't know how they did
Nice.
that.
It's a gardener's touch.
Yeah, huge pomegranates already starting.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I was wondering.
Ask, knock on the door, because all gardeners love to share. They love talking about their gardens. They love, you'll get a tour of the backyard and the front yard. But they can tell you what the variety is that they planted there. And I put money, they bought it from us. They put money on it. Because we have a ton of influence in Granville.
Yeah.
That whole valley area. They seem to come down, they just come down 89A, get Iron Springs, and they're here. So, but they can get, if they're happy, they can get as tall as you and I.
Yeah.
Usually they'll be in this hip to chest high size. So, yeah, pomegranate, you made my mouth water. It must be close to lunchtime or something. Didn't eat breakfast. With that, remember, get a card, water guide. You got to be more accurate. You're probably watering things right now for established plants once a week. A deep soak. Turn the irrigation on for a couple hours. Then let it breathe. Do not make the mistake of watering every day a tree or a shrub. They will not like that. You'll be training your roots to only go about 3-4 inches in the ground, and then come the monsoon pattern, your butterfly bush will blow over, the wind will just take them over because the roots are not deep enough. You want to water enough to get through the root zone and a little bit more. That encourages a deep root cycle.
Once a week?
About once a week for established plants, twice a week for brand new plants. So it just depends. Get the water guide. Get your email if you want to have the book. Thank you all. I'll let you clap.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in online too.